I want to start this session or this discussion with some kind of you know, um, not really a meditation, but an invocation to the spirits, invocation to our higher selves, so that we will be able to achieve our objective of discussion, of this discussion. This discussion is not about who knows what. This is about a discussion or a venue of sharing and authenticity. And I'm just holding the vessel for us to have this meaningful discussion, because I know most of us have a lot of experiences maybe in the past, or have seen somebody who is in this process, and we couldn't really understand what it is. So I have this drum, and this drum represents the beating of the heart. And as we call and start this discussion, we call upon the Great Spirit of everything that is. Call upon our higher selves to descend some inspiration, insight upon us, that we may remember. We thank all the spirit allies, the plant spirits, the power animals, the angels, all the souls of the departed, all our ancestry, all our teachers who have come before us to be able to be in this position, to be able to experience this exciting time of an awakening road. We thank the source of all light, love, and power. We thank the Creator. And we connect to the higher self, that we may remember. I hope everybody will just listen and relax to this drum, to open your hearts. We are one global community, a community of sharing, a community of love. And I'd like to offer first a song, and this, please, I hope you listen to the message, because this is a song about remembering. It's originally sung by Peya. Blessed we are to stand on this ground with a rhythm of saints, to carry the sound, a prayer for the earth, for the days yet to come. May you walk in beauty and remember your song. Blessed we are to stand on this ground with a rhythm of saints to carry the sound. A prayer for the earth, for the ones yet to come. May you walk in beauty and remember your song. Remember why you came here. Remember your life is sacred. Remember why you came here. Remember your life is sacred. Hey, 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 yo. Hey, 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 yo. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 yo. Hey, 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 yo. Hey, 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 hey. Blessed we are to stand on this ground with the rhythm of saints to carry the sound. A prayer for the earth, for the ones yet to come. May you walk in beauty and remember your song. Blessed you are to stand on this ground with a rhythm of saints to carry the sound. Prayer for the earth, the ones yet to come. May you walk in beauty and remember your song. Remember why you came here. Remember your life is sacred. Remember why you came here. Remember your life is sacred. Hey, 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 yo. Hey, 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 yo. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 yo. Hey, 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 yo. Hey, 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 hey. Blessed we are to stand on this ground with a rhythm of saints to carry the sound. A prayer for the earth, for the ones yet to come. May you walk in beauty and remember your song. Okay, thank you for staying with. I hope that set the mood for our discussion tonight. Thank you for joining in. Hi, Rose. Hi, Chris. Hi, Kay. Kaye. Hi, Mark. Hi, Miss Yayet. Hello. Hi, Chichi. Okay, so thank you very much for joining in. Tonight is about the awakening process. So the song that I just sung a while ago, it's a song by Peya, and it's about remembering. And that is actually what the awakening process is all about. So this is, as I said earlier, I don't claim to be an expert of the awakening process. I will just hold the vessel as a facilitator to facilitate this discussion And so I encourage everyone to share their experiences, to participate. Um, and the intention of this is discussion is about sharing our own process, to exchange insights about what we've done that could inspire others as well to go through this process. And that's the major intention. And of course, to have fun. This is a very exciting time for everyone. And I think the topic was for me, said Cynthia. Okay, already saw that. And I'm sure that everyone who joined in must be feeling, you know, has been drawn to this because in one way or another, either you have been experiencing it currently or you've experienced the awakening process in the past. But what really is an awakening process? What is an awakening process? So again, I'm not the guru here. I'm more of to facilitate the discussion, but I will share what I've experienced and what I know about the awakening process in the hope that it might give you an understanding, a clarity of your path, and it might inspire you to share as well. So I encourage everyone to participate. And at the end of this discussion, I'm giving out a book. If you see this book here, it's Through the Darkness. So let's see who I will explain later. What's the mechanics of I will be raffling off that book later for those people who has already, who's given a very good insight about this discussion. So let's start. What is an awakening process? I can tell you what it is not. So the awakening process is not is different from the Kundalini rising. Although I sometimes the awakening process involves the rising of the Kundalini, and sometimes the Kundalini process also is part of the awakening process. But the Kundalini is about something that is that rises up, and it is a journey of empowerment, as well as the awakening process is not an enlightenment process. And it's not also an intuitive process or an intuitive awakening. An intuitive awakening is something that opens up all your senses, so you're able to see what you don't see in the past.
The intuitive awakening or the enlightenment. The awakening process is about the opening of the heart, stepping into a certain kind of experience. Earlier, the awakening process is not just about intuitive awakening or psychic awakening. It's not just about the Kundalini rising. It's a process of experiential process where you step in and identify, the sense of self in relation to the world, and to be free from all those illusions of reality that we were programmed to. So I will share to you some my experience on how this awakening process come about. My awakening process really happened just a few years ago. Even though, as I said, as a child, I was already doing this reading stuff, and I was already healing, and I was into that. But where my awareness comes was from the external. What I mean. What awareness was is mostly mental. It's mostly here. And although I know the techniques, I know what to do, but my focus was more on the external process. My focus was more on other people, and so that is most of the spiritual practitioners, the healers, are into that as well. Like for me, even though in 2000, after 11 years in the corporate world, when I stepped in, like, to integrate my life and be a full-time healer and reader, after the 2012, um, I didn't, even if I didn't know what I was getting into, it wasn't still an awakening for me. It was a shift, yes, but it wasn't an awakening. So, because as I said, my consciousness at that time was more of, I heal because because I feel other people's pain, and from healing them it alleviates my suffering and pain. And so my consciousness was, an awareness is more on directed on other people and the external circumstances. Like if, for example, my family sees me successful, then my happiness is attached to that. When I see a person alleviated, then my relief is attached to that. So that is the realm of what we call still the unconscious. We're still unconscious, and we're still somehow semi-awake, not really awake. So in 2012, after I stepped into to be a full-time healer and reader, I was given dreams, like a recurrent dream about a tsunami, and this tsunami hitting, the shores of the Philippines, flooding the Philippines, and there was like pure total destruction. And in that dream, I saw myself driving. I was a survivor and was trying to find my family, and I didn't know what it meant at that time. So since it was a recurring dream, at first I ignored it. The second time, the third time, and the fourth time. By the fourth time, there was kind of fear building up within me, thinking that maybe I have to pay attention. But the problem there was, I took the meaning so literally, and so I started sharing this to people, my dream, only to find out that there were people also having those visions and those dreams. And so like the fear multiplied, and that's when there was an era where people started selling their stuff. I know of a couple who did that. They started their we call end of the world preppers. They were preparing for the end of the world, and so they sold everything. And because they knew that in their minds, because of the signs and the symptoms and the visions that was given to a lot of people, that the world is ending and that there will be total destruction and mayhem. But when the date came, it didn't happen, and so they kind of got stuck years of that, without a home, without anything, because they all like detached from everything else. So for me, the fear like really grew, and so it's like trying to share it with other people. And it was only it was only in 2015 that I got the explanation to what my dream actually meant. So in 2015 was also the start of my awakening process. And my awakening process was triggered by the death of my husband. And during those times, I was like searching for, actually during those times, I will share later how did it trigger me to my awakening. But during those times, I was searching for something, for some answers, of course. And it made me go to a place called Casa Verde. I don't know if you've heard that place. It's a place, I think, in Batangas. And I went there with a couple of spirit quester friends and a guide, Kuya Lito. Kuya Lito is also a healer. And in my, what a spirit quester is, if you're from the Philippines, you know them from 1995. It started from Ateneo, and we do, what we do is people, families call us, we go to the house, check if it's supernatural, try to resolve it through the talents and gifts and the abilities and the healings that we have. So that was the group that I belonged before. And by 2015, at that time we were already dissolved. But I have four friends who came with me. Three Spirit Quester friends who came with me, plus Tito Lito and me. And we went to Casa Verde. There was this part. Casa Verde is a very mystical place. It's and we went. He guided us to a part where he said that there were like UFOs landing there. That's what they said. And so when we looked at that place, we energetically saw like a vortex, like a very, very big vortex. It actually looked like a helipad because you go up a hill, and then on that hill there was like this clearing with cement, and you could see like the other the mountaintops of other mountains. So we decided to hold a seance. A seance is when you channel energies, or it's also a vision quest. And we call that in Spirit Questers a circle. So we did a circle, and we started doing traveling, going to the astral world to check out what it is. And actually, it took us outer space, and we saw that we were all in outer space. So if you want to know an idea how it works, it's like we're talking, but our consciousness is somewhere else, and we're describing what's happening in that somewhere else while we're talking. So we're here, and then our consciousness is outside, and we found ourselves in outer space. And so we kind of went because we don't know what to do there. We haven't really gone outer space as Spirit Questers, but we kind of went back to the middle of the vortex is like a sundial. So we went back in the middle, and then we met this divine, big, very big divine feminine, and that looked like Mama Mary. But of course, that may be an interpretation of our mind of a divine feminine, because we were all brought up as Catholics. And so we started talking to this divine feminine, and she was like giving messages to us. And the funny part is, she's divine feminine, and there were four guys channeling information. The four guys were channeling the divine feminine, and I was the only feminine there. And it was like I was having a conversation with her. And that's when I asked her what was this about the dream about this tsunami hitting the Philippines. And the dreams were very specific, because it had specific dates, like two dates. One was in November and one was in April. And then I didn't expect what she answered. And she answered was that it meant that there is a cosmic wave that's gonna hit the earth, and this cosmic wave is gonna cause a lot of destruction, and this destruction is not physical. And I asked, at that time, I said, what is a cosmic wave? I'm a healer and a reader, but I've never gone to understand those things at that time. And she said, it's a wave of energy that kind of alters, they said, the DNA of the people. That's not how she really said it, but she just said it changes people. So this cosmic wave, she said, is gonna hit people, and what's gonna happen is that their realities will crumble down. Their false realities, the illusions, the things that they were attached to externally, is gonna crumble down. And that's going to cause a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of illusions, confusion in people. And then I asked this divine feminine, so why do you give these dreams to me? What am I supposed to do? And she said, what you need to do is to be able to be there present for those people who have, to be present to those people whose realities has crumbled down, and to guide them towards their new way of being. And of course, I remembered that she said that, but at that time I didn't even have a concept of what awakening is. I was just this person who was just not really confined to my locality of practices and and ways and customs and traditions. um, and I asked, what then should I do? Like, how could I do that? I'm not anybody. I'm not a teacher. I'm not. And then this divine feminine said, whatever that you have, whatever that you've learned, that is what you're gonna help with your people. And she was like telling me, like, those are your tools. The gifts and we gave you are the tools to help people, to caddy them, to guide, not really, but to caddy them to their new way of being. And of course, years after that was only when I really like, that was what the divine feminine was talking about, was the awakening process. So sometimes, yeah, sometimes we kind of like get messages and then really digest it, and then you know had an epiphany afterwards, later on. So that's the best way that I could say about the, like, the description of awakening process. I'm just gonna say to those who just tuned in, hi Kaye, Angelo, hi, Nieves, Raymond, Regina, Yane, Del Ramos, Katut, hello Katut from Bali, Maan, Ivan, Renzo, hello, how's your tour in US? Felma, and yeah, Yane, record. And the other one was, yeah. Okay, so we're talking about the awakening process, and we're talking about like how the best we can describe it. And again, feel free to share any insights. And for those people who wants to say something, actually, I can actually add you in the feed. That's something cool about the iPhone because you can. I can add you so we can have an exchange of insight. This is a discussion, and I'm just holding the vessel for this discussion. And the reason why I'm doing this because in like in how many years I've been always doing these readings, and majority of my readings are about people doing in the middle, catching them in this awakening process. And there seems to be some kind of commonality. But the thing is, like, it started in showing up in my life in 2016, but now it's like it seems like everybody is in this process, everybody is waking up. So what it really does an awakening process entail? How it usually presents itself, as what the divine feminine said, was that all the realities, the false realities or the illusions, our external attachments will start falling apart. And I did a research, and the research about these things, and then I saw in one article or in one report that there was this planet from another galaxy or another cluster within our galaxy that blew up. And if we look at that time, that was in 2015 when I started trying to research about this, and when you look up at the telescope, it seems like that it's still intact, but actually it's already blown up, and that the effect of it blowing up will just arrive to us like 10 years after. So guess what? That how many years from now it's about to arrive. And so this is or maybe it blew up a long time ago and it just arrived in this period of time. And so that is actually some kind of radiation or cosmic radiation. And I'm feeling that maybe that's what the divine feminine was referring to, this cosmic wave altering us and actually altering our DNA. And what usually happens in an awakening process, is triggered by different things. You see, if you look at your life right now and like have a check, and for those people who are very aware that they're in the awakening process, how did it start? It starts with loss of a job. It starts with um, getting disinterested with what you're doing. You know, you used to be somebody like this, and then suddenly now it doesn't, you don't feel like doing it anymore. Or it can be a loss of somebody. Like in my part, the trigger of my awakening was the death of my husband. It can be like destruction of your reality, breaking up of the family, or a relationship conflict. It can also really be a lot of things. But the point here being, the awakening process is triggered by, you know, if you were attached to a certain external source for your happiness and well-being and living, once that it's taken away, you would feel some sort of confusion, law, and anxiety, because when you are attached to something, your identity is somehow like attached to it as well, right? Okay. Hi, Dorothy. I'm not doing readings today. I'm doing a discussion. So, yeah, of the awakening process. I hope you come in. Hi, EC. Hi, Ed. And hi, Chiki. And again, we're talking about the triggers this time of the awakening process. And I'm curious, for those who are very aware about that they're in that process, or they have been in that process, please do share. Please do share about your triggers of your awakening processes, and what made you think that that was the trigger. Okay, so this is I really hope that we would have a certain discussion. Again, Dorothy, I think this is not a good time to ask about these things. Maybe if you really want to know your the condition, it would be good to have a booking. Tonight at this hour, what we're talking about is having a discussion about the awakening process. Okay, so what are your triggers? What are the triggers of your awakening process? And sometimes there are certain people that I've read who in the beginning of time, like they were very successful in something, but then suddenly the world changed and the ways and tactics aren't working anymore. So what is that? They told me, is it because they're just behind the times and stuff? But you know what happens really is, as I observe, and this is just me, is that, you know, Mother Earth is also a living being, and we're part of Mother Earth. And Mother Earth is also in a process. And, you know, after awakening, there is also another process called ascension. And ascension is something that you are raising in a level of vibration. So Mother Earth is in that state of like ascending. And of course, since she is ascending, all of us are, because we're in her ship, you know, so we are all forced to go to a certain level. And by that occurrence makes us go to this, we need to wake up, we need to be at that level of her ascension, or else like we don't survive. That's just how it is, because Earth is the you know, because our vessels are coming from Mother Earth. Okay, so what are your triggers? What made you get into this process of ascension? So once that you go into this process of the awakening, and not ascension, rather the awakening, when the difference between the Kundalini and the difference between the intuitive awakening is that this is really basically coming from the starting point is the opening of the heart. That's the very starting point, is the heart opening. And that is the process where we like all take a lot of time, you know. This is the process where most of us take a lot of time to, you know, to do. And so it's why do you think that is? Why do you think, like, most of us, took a long time, like decades, lifetimes after lifetime, where we're all, not being able to live in an awakened state. We are, most of us are usually living in an unconscious state. How would you know if you are still in that unconscious state? Well, basically, if you are watching this video, most probably you're drawn to it because most probably you resonate with it. But if you think you're not there yet, the unconscious state would be somebody who, as I said earlier, be externally driven, whose attachments are external. They don't see the world beyond the physical or the societal programmings of the society. Their aspirations in life is usually about measured, and their happiness in life is usually measured, in the success, the approval of other people, the recognition, the amount of money that they have, and how they're like good people for not breaking the rules. That is an unconscious state. And most of the people who are into this path, we sometimes do have this discussion. And I also went to a shaman's summit online, and they were discussing about what you call a disembodied state. What is this disembodied state? It is living in a state where you are disconnected from your body. You're just living from the head. You're like a zombie, in short. So that is the unconscious state, where you wake up, sleep, and you're just running in autopilot in your life. So, and when the awakening process, it gets triggered, suddenly, all this confusion, all these questions, all these doubts surfaces up. And like for me, when Jeff passed away, as that was my triggered my awakening process, all these questions and doubts about my relationship with God, my if there is really a greater good, if it is just really a random occurrence, that there are things that has no meaning. So that's actually the second stage of from unconsciousness to consciousness. That's what they call the second stage, where you question everything, and you question the society, question the government, you question the rules that were written, you question your religion, you question your faith. And this is the part of the process where you become a rebel, but still you are playing the game with the society. Like inside of you, you still want to be approved. You still want to succeed. Outwardly gain recognition and all those things. So this is what you call like a semi awakened state. Like you're just starting the journey. And I'm actually curious if there are people who are in that state. Most of the people that I've encountered, when somebody gets into a crisis right now, like it seems so devastating because the amount or the intensity or degree that we are attached to our happiness to external things is just so like high, in the highest degree. and very high degree, our attachments is just so there. And when that is taken away, like it now feels like a crisis. Like if you look back before the wars happened, everything, if there's something bad that happened, a lot of people still find time to move on, survive, to find joy again. And why is that? It's because people are less attached with the external and the material world. But now a lot of people are attached to that. So, and they attach their whole idea of themselves to the external world. That when you take it away, that's why, like, the youngsters of today, like, you take that away, everything is so, like, is now a crisis. Like a breakup with a girlfriend or a boyfriend, they commit suicide, right? Or they, what they weren't able to give to get a high score, they commit suicide. And just because they didn't have the kind of parents that they have, they go to drugs. And just because you don't have the money, you have like your other kids, then you go to depression. I mean, if you see the attachment of the people to the external world or to the material world is so high, to the point where everything, when it's taking out, it's a life or death, or a matter of life or death, or a crisis. Okay, so hi to Bebot, hi to Irene, and hi to everyone who's still watching. So we're now in the state of the awakening process, wherein like everything is crumbling apart. So in this state, I think the best question here, what do you do now? The people that I've read who've undergone all these crises, it's natural for people to find answers from the spiritual realm. That's when people go to the spiritual, when things cannot be answered in the material world, right? And so when you find the answer there, the attention goes more to the spiritual realm. And that's the purpose why the awakening, the triggers of awakening, is so painful, because it forces us to look the other way, to look in the spiritual realm, rather than to look more, finding more answers in this realm of the material. Hi, Seed or CD, so I don't know how that is pronounced, but hello. So when you are, and I encourage everyone, if you have anything that you want to share, please do share your insights. If you want anything to say, please tell me. I can invite you, and we can have a duo discussion in this discussion about the awakening process. So if, for example, your triggers are mostly about relationships and relationship conflicts, then what you do, it's usually a reflection of your inner child wounds. And so that's where you want to go, what you want to look for when you are in this stage of awakening process, is how you were brought up as a child. What were the issues? What were the wounds? Because in finding out those wounds, then let's just say you kind of surpass that level. Again, the awakening process doesn't have any grades. There are no mistakes. Each awakening process is different from each other, but we can help each other in alleviating the suffering or the pain that we're enduring, while we're undergoing this process. Because I could tell you, this process is no joke. It is really, really painful. So from that stage of questioning and rebelling, you find yourself being trying, because find yourself trying to isolate from everybody else, from the people who used to be your friends, but because you do not enjoy the things that they've enjoyed before, it's hard to connect. And so you find yourself more and more alone, and all of those things when you share to people about, how the programmings that you have to go above the programmings of society, like for other people who's unconscious and unawakened, it's kind of weird, right? It's kind of weird. So like you see yourself more and more alone. Your family doesn't understand you, gets weirded out about what's happening to you, thinking you're going insane, and your friends think like you're holier than thou, or kind of, because find conflicts with them. And even with your other relationships, especially your intimate relationships, you suddenly find that you're not in sync with each other. So that's the stage where you feel yourself isolated. And if you look around right now, it's not only the way of life that we're living, that we're isolating ourselves. We're isolating ourselves also because we know from a deep subconscious level that things, before, is not something that gives joy and fulfillment to us now. And so we'd rather like withdraw and isolate ourselves. So Miguel says, I feel that my awakening process started when I wanted a big change in my life, because my life was falling apart and bad experiences kept on happening again and again. So I decided I need change. Then synchronicities started happening in my life and magically have put me on this path. Okay, thank you very much, Miguel, for sharing. So Miguel is our Hongo shaman, and he's a also when things keeps happening again and again and over, it gets more painful as time goes by, and that's true. And this is the my rule with myself, that I call that the pebbles, the stones, the rocks, and the boulders. This is how like the spirit tries to get our attention. First, the spirit throws pebbles at us to get our attention, and so we kind of like it's just a nick but doesn't hurt us. And then the universe throws the stones. So this time it's just a bit painful, but we can still manage. And then the rocks, now the universe now uses the rocks, the rocks. And then so it's now a big blow, you get injured, but yeah, you just continue on ignoring the spirit. And then the boulders. So if, for example, so this is also like the way the awakening process works. If there are things that keeps happening again and again, it becomes more painful and more painful. And are you gonna wait until the boulders will come to you and to get your attention about, like life is not just about this external, like you're living in an illusion, and like this is the 99% is really in the spiritual world, as what the Kabbalah people says, that this mundane life is just 1% and everything else is in the 99% that we're missing out. Okay, so thank you, Miguel, for your for sharing. So we go now back to the awakening processes, and I wish there are more people who could like if you could share what are you experiencing right now, then maybe we could identify or identify what's happening to you. So Des said, I don't know what stage I am right now. I'm confused. I'm trying to know my purpose in life. Oh, the purpose in life. So so at this stage where people are like kind of rebelling, most people rebelling and questioning in that stage too. You're always we're always still trying to play the game. We think we know above the system, but still we're trying to play within the system, and it's very unconscious. So the next would so what is the focus where when you are in this stage? The focus really in this stage is to find out what's blocking your heart, because the awakening, as I said, is about the heart opening. And the heart opening the reason why our heart are blocked was because of sometimes these inner child wounds. It's because of how many times we get hurt in this lifetime or the past lifetimes, and made our heart blocked, and made us to live in this area and forget to live from this area, because of the avoidance of pain we wanted to not experience. But you see, this is the reason why we came here, to experience it fully. So Raymond says, when I realized that nothing makes sense anymore. Thank you, Raymond, for sharing that. It's true. When nothing makes sense anymore, that's a trigger that you are in that process. So Miguel says he'd like to hear stories from other people too. Thank you, Miguel. Yes, I would like to encourage stories from other people. This is supposed to be a discussion. So now we go to the point where the focus is in the heart opening, because there would be no awakening without that heart opening. So the focus here is like trying to feel, we're trying to thaw our wounds. Our heart, because we froze our heart, we caged our hearts, we hardened our hearts just so we could not feel the pain. That's what this was about. And the heart is the awakening of the heart is the sixth sense, actually. It's also the energetic heart is also a sensory organ. Like the pineal gland is the third eye, our heart is also a sensory organ, and it actually takes in more information, that it has this physical relationship with the brain. It feeds information to the brain. And the reason why we're confused and lost is because our heart is also our flashlight. It is also our discernment. So if it's hardened by the heart, when the attachment, like when you get triggered, it's so painful that you got lost, confused, and you don't know what to do. Okay, Kaya said awakening is painful. Yeah, AF. And it completely resonates. May, the past 2 years have been really tough with my support system falling apart. I felt detached and uprooted. Now my mindset is set on going back to what matters to me and being a student of life all over again. Thanks for this session and figuring out so much. Thank you very much, Kaya, for sharing. That was very brave of you. And I understand this might be a very hard process, but yeah, kudos to you for like being able to I know you will figure it out soon. So heart open slowly, so maybe it's a good way to measure, to check our heart. And I will tell you a story about this heart opening. As I said, my awakening process started when my husband passed away, and this led me, my husband passing away, and then this led me to being introduced to the plant medicine called ayahuasca. And in one of the ceremonies, there was a vision where there was this shaman in front of me, and this shaman had a staff, and the vision was this old shaman was trying to like poke my heart, and as it was poking, I felt that it was like cemented, and I was trying to chip all the cement away. And I didn't realize that my heart was that way, because in pranic healing, the healing modality that I've practiced, I've been meditating like almost every day before, in the height of my healing euphoria, the meditation of twin hearts, which involved the heart opening. And I didn't realize that there was like two openings of the heart, but like yeah, we that's for another session. But then, you know, this vision was that this shaman was trying to chip in, and then this shaman, you know, like this a vision, you know, a vision of a shaman, but not really a person. And then the shaman told me telepathically, as she said, you have to work from the inside. That's what the shaman. You have to work from the inside. You have to work, like, make your heart from the inside stronger, so that we will meet halfway. That way, your heart will open, like your heart will fall, you know, faster. And so that was the reason, like, you know, after that I kept like going to these ceremonies, because my purpose was to open my heart. And when my heart did open, oh my god, it was like the best feeling in the whole world, in my entire experience of this life. When your heart opens, you just know. You know, it's not like, is my heart open? Nah, maybe. No, it's not a maybe. It's like you really feel it. You feel it like it's like a menthol in your chest, and it really feels good. So once that is open, then your stage two. Let's just say your stage two is a bit finished. Then you go to the next step, but these steps or the process is not linear. Just letting you know that sometimes these steps kind of happen simultaneously, or sometimes you go to steps 2, step 3, and then you'll go back to step 1. And so it's like, it's a, as what the grand unified theory says, that the movement of everything is spiral, it's not linear. Okay, so once that your heart is open, there is this like there is this new sense of feeling where you get high and low. And the high is that if by yourself, opening your heart, meditating your heart, it feels good. But then when you come back to life and interact with the people in the mundane life, suddenly, you know, your heart closes. And you would feel that when it gets closed, because it contracts, or it closes, because you know, things happen. The people around you, especially because of your awakening, gets triggered as well. And so most of the people who have gone to retreats, who has gone to different inner processes, that's the greatest difficulty that people experience, is when they integrate and they go back to the mundane life. It's harder. And because there is usually no support system, most of the people who are in this process feels that they're alone. And then you find yourself in a place where, oh man, I wish I didn't wake up. I wish I didn't make my heart open. I mean, at that point, when my heart wasn't open, I had friends. Their friends were false friends, but I had friends. I'm not alone. But now, like, who am I to share this with? Like, everybody, I everything that I share this is I'm met with contradiction, I'm met with contrast, and I'm met with resistance. That's really what happens in the real world. And so majority of the people in the awakening process go back to one, try to fit in again, try to get that job again, try to pretend that they're not awakened, but it doesn't really work out. In the end, you suffer more if you don't proceed, like, process or go to push yourself to the next level. Okay, so hi Hopsy for joining us. So we are discussing about the awakening process, and feel free to share if you have any insights that you want to share about this process. So what happens is, what do you do now? You know, you are in this stage where your heart is open, but the people around you resist that energy coming from your heart, or try to dim your heart. So there it's like now a process of closing, opening, trying to open again, closing, trying to open again. So this is the stage where you need to strengthen your heart. This is the stage when you need to strengthen your heart. This is the stage because what happens is when your heart is open, some of the senses also are very open. And this was what happens usually with people doing plant medicines, is that they get overwhelmed. They get overwhelmed when you go back to life. Like for me, I've spent the first month of dieta and isolation in Peru. When I came back to the Philippines, I didn't tell people I was here, because just arriving here, like when the plane just literally was about to land, I suddenly all the my heart just kind of felt like there was a big chunk of rock that pushed on me, and it was so overwhelming. So I kind of hid in my home for 2 weeks, just to get acquainted with this energy again, because the energy in Manila, in the Philippines, especially in Manila, is very, very heavy, really, and it's hard for a person. Then I've noticed that, because I've lived in Cebu, and then whenever I'm in Manila, it's like the energy is heavier here than in Cebu, and in other parts of the Philippines. So yeah, so that's what you are facing when you're in this awakening process. Okay, let's go further now. Your focus is more on heart strengthening, and the heart strengthening is usually done when you have exchanges with nature. The nature, the trees, the plants, they're so giving. Even the animals, Mother Earth is so giving. They're unconditionally giving without asking back. And that's not only in terms of the fruits, the flowers, and the leaves, but it actually or the oxygen, but actually more of energetically. They're so giving. And so for people who wants to strengthen their heart, spending time with nature and exchanging energy with trees and plants and with nature strengthens your heart, especially when you try to connect with a plant, or when you try to connect with a plant, and when you try to have this good exchange with a plant. So that's how you strengthen your heart. So in this stage 3 is usually the time where people leave their old jobs, when things doesn't make sense anymore. And then this is the time where you are already trying to find your purpose. So as what Des was saying, and because the old way of being doesn't work anymore. But the thing is, in stage 3 is actually one of the hardest stages ever, because in this stage, this is where your ego comes in, and where what the focus more is on about your what they call the darkness, the sense of self. Remember, I told you you try to separate our tendency, because we're now feeling more lonelier. We isolate and get overwhelmed by what's happening in the world, and it's not aligned to our own energy. There is a necessity for us to have times of isolation. So stage 3 is when the focus now is self-care. It's when you are suddenly realizing this is actually the great shift from the external to the internal. Now we're finding in this stage that the internal process is very, very important, that the greatest obstacle is ourselves. And this is the point where we see the effect when we change ourselves, that when we change ourselves, then our reality changes. And so this is when people really go to retreats, work with an intention of finding out where their ego lies and their darkness lies. It's about the shadow, they call the shadow work and all this stuff. And uh, and so this is something that I've seen a lot of people doing it, and it's a beautiful but painful process. And our concept of separation, our concept, the illusion that you and me are different and we're separate from each other, is something so hard to grasp. So like for me, I will share you, to me, like the darkness that I have has been, one of them are two things, is anger and control. Anger and control. I've been a very angry child, ever since, because of all the BS that happened to me. And yeah, the stage one, the stage two actually is when you're still in the blame, you're trying to blame people for, you're still in that victimization mode. And stage three, you have this accountability. This is like, I'm accountable for my own anger. I'm accountable for what happened to me, and everything that happened to me has a reason. So I was an angry child, and as an angry child, I channeled this anger through singing alternative rock in a band, and that kind of like made me less angry at the time. And I thought that like motivation and all those things are fueled by anger, not joy. And that was something that I had to take out of myself. During this awakening process, I realized I was angry at God. I was angry at the universe, the divine. I was angry because they took away my husband. And to a point that I was so attached to that anger, even though I have a very hard life as a child, I never gave up, because I told you that anger fueled my, kept me alive. But when my husband died, and there was one time when there was a television who featured our love story, my husband and I. They featured, it's in channel 7 local TV, and then after it was shown, there was a woman texting me, telling me that they had a relationship when Jeff and I were together as husband and wife. And so in the beginning, I didn't really I just ignored it, but it kept that this girl kept texting me. And so I consulted to my friends who are psychic, and they said probably that it happened. And that kind of blew my head into fury, that I spent the whole night, like when Jeff was alive, I never opened his emails. I never opened his Facebook or even his phone. I never opened, because we were operating, our relationship was based on trust. That I opened everything, scanned all of the things of anything I could find about this girl. I even messaged his best friend, and tried to ask him, because he's a techie guy. Tried to ask him to trace this girl. I was that in the moment of anger and ego, to the point that I made a letter to Jeff in his Facebook that I'm gonna kill myself just so I will not see you in the afterlife. That was like, I was like consumed by that, so much anger and so much ego, that something like clicked in me, that I had suddenly a desire to commit suicide. And so I put on a white dress, I put makeup, and in my head I was like planning to like go up the 20 stairs of my condo and jump. I was like, I was angry, and I want to do that because of anger. Imagine that. And this is the first time that I shared it like publicly, of this occurrence. And it was, what made me like, I was like already like determined to do that, and I wasn't even depressed. Fortunately, at that time I was studying Kabbalah, and my teacher in our graduation gave me a small Zohar like this, and it was a pink one for soulmates. And because it was a gift, I saw it, got out of my bag, it was on the bed, and I just opened it, and I was like thinking, maybe I'll just, since I'm gonna die anyway, just gonna figure out what this is, my teacher gave me, what this is about. And as I was like looking, those, like, if you could see the squiggly lines and stuff, doesn't really make any sense. But as I was doing that, tears fell out of my eyes. Tears fell out of us from nowhere. And it was at that moment that I cried and realized, oh my God, I was so attached to our story of me and Jeff having this wonderful, wonderful love story, that I'm willing to die for it. Imagine, like, I was willing to die for that story. And that's when I've realized that, that's the ego. And at that moment, after that, I showered, took off, like, and I was showering. I was like, visualizing myself that all the water is taking out all this ego and all these attachments to that story, because I feel that at that time, what the spirits wanted me to learn is that I can move on with a new life, and I have to detach from the old concept of who I was and what I was when I was in that relationship. And so so that's the reason why, like, people in this stage, like, kind of, when you are isolated and you are like doing like a hermit life and not connecting with the community, like, there's high probability, and I can say that, like, that most of the Americans are in that state of hopelessness, and because of they're not willing to detach from that ego or from that attachment. And some people are willing to die, are willing to be zombies by taking antidepressants, or are willing to waste their life just to preserve that attachment. Imagine that. In stage 3, it is both a pain and it's a relief, because once that you are able to unravel the ego, and as my Kabbalah teacher said, that this ego is something that you don't what the evil doesn't want you to know is to know that they exist. We don't know, it's so unconscious that we don't know that we have it in us. And this is where the meat of inner work really comes in. And the meat of inner work involves looking inward, and this is where all this retreats, plant ceremonies, like because the plant medicine and other medicines and other retreats like yoga, inner work, Carl Jung, and all those things, they come in handy. These, like, and going to different modalities, it doesn't matter what tool, because all of these modalities are tools for us to focus on our spirit. And so anything that you feel that you're comfortable with, that is like making you look inward, and face that darkness and face that ego, and put light into it, is something that will help you in this process. So, like in stage one, what usually helps you is opening the heart, and what also helps you is when you get a reading from somebody or a guide. Okay, on stage two, what really helps you are those documentaries, because those documentaries offer you like a new alternative way of living. And to explain, usually these documentaries are explaining to you what is and what is not, what is real and what is not. It's like re-educating. And this third phase is something that makes you go inward and increase that level where you can reconnect with others again, because all these shadows or egos are the ones that makes us feel or think that we're separate from each other. So hi Diego, I don't know if you're still here or you're back in South America. Hi Sir Ed. Okay, so we are talking about the awakening process, and I'm hoping, that some people would be able to share their insights about this process, or share about their experiences, because I'm sharing mine, and there is no one way of awakening. There's no one way, but it would help if we share to each other what helped us, what did not help us, so that we can assist others as well, who are in the middle of this or about to go in this, or if they have a loved one or a friend who are in this process, because it like it would be good to know, like, oh, I think you're in an awakening process, and you can point them to the right direction or right guidance. Okay, so this is when, and we're now in the stage three, and the stage three is when everything doesn't make sense and you want to do a life change. This is where you do a life change, really, and you're trying to find the purpose. And usually, as I said, the point of focus here is ego, because it's the ego that doesn't want you to find your purpose. It's the ego that doesn't want you to find the fulfillment that you need. And by the way, yeah, we're having in lieu of that, one of the retreats, aside from the plant medicines that we're organizing in Bali, is also we're making a retreat called an inner light working retreat. So this is about facing your ego, increasing the light within you, so that and there is a process, and this process was actually given to me, like we call that a download, after all the dietas and ceremonies. It's somehow like a technique that they shared to me, and they said to share it to a community. So we're having that done in August, but 10 to 12 we're already full. So I feel that the next retreat will be in October, and if you're interested in that, just message me. So after this, usually after this stage, is when you're finished with this stage, and usually this is like for me, it is a very hard stage, because you're not only working on the stage of you're not working on this lifetime. Like your ego is collected if you believe in past lives, it's collected in different lifetimes. So to get the seed out takes a lot of inner awareness, takes a lot of consciousness. So this is the time where you're going to like yoga, your retreats, wanting to connect to a community that can help you. So by the end, by when you reach the stage 4, this is where you feel that everything you have made already a life, a life choice to align with what your heart wants. This is the stage where you are now participating in some sort of creation. You know, you can now, you're now, like, for example, this is the point where you are doing your life purpose or your mission, and about to this is about that. The stage 4 is about, you're about to step into your purpose and your mission, and all these things. And what you're actually trying to work on here in stage 4, because a lot of people think that this stage is where you're finished. You've attained this, like, every after the release of the ego, you feel peace. You would know when the ego is done, because you've released something and you feel peace. But then, as I said, like, there are this is like, all of the stages can be all happening all at once. And so, like, it can be in different levels. Like, for example, my anger has been worked upon. How about my control issues? How about my my other egos? And sometimes there are egos that I'm not even aware of. And so this is like a constant like process where where you never stop. And even saying, there are certain practitioners that I've encountered who said, I'm done. They said, I'm done. That is even ego. Because as long as we're in this body, we experience some sense of separatedness. And as long as we are not fully conscious, we're still not finished. And so on stage 4, we are we are in that point where we feel we are co-creators. Like, we have now somehow a say to what our environment is. And this is the stage where you feel you want to share this, and you feel that you've discovered something, and you want to help others. So there is this sense of recognition of the others as you. So this stage is when you most probably are gearing up for your life or soul purpose. And what does that entail? In this stage, the issue that you will be really dealing with is not from this lifetime. And I've encountered a lot of people who have read that, like, they are already in the stage that they cannot trace, even from their ancestral line, their lineage, their belief systems and stuff. Like, they couldn't find where their issues, certain limitations are coming from, and only to find out it is coming from a past life. So what you're really in this stage 4 is focusing on and working on is your karmic debt, which means that you're now going back to all the times that you have experienced, that you are carrying with you in this lifetime, and you're trying to uproot them all, and you're trying to pay them all. And that's why there are times that even people in who has attained a lot of release and light, there are still people who kind of pops in once in a while to challenge them, to trigger them, or situations that put them to give them more growth and learning. But actually, these are usually like karmic repayment. And to give you a clearer view, I don't know, guys, how open you are to past lives, but as one of the things that I do is our past life readings. And I seldom read for myself, but then sometimes some of these past lives kind of like open up, and I remember them. And there was one time and when I remember them, it's not remember mentally, it's remember physically, remember experientially. So there was one time last year that suddenly through a certain, I was learning a modality online from the US called focusing, and there was this like seemingly rock on my solar plexus, in between my heart and solar plexus area. And the concept of focusing is when you try to speak to the different parts of you that you have taken for granted, for example. So what I did was, with the teacher, we focused on it, and suddenly, what opened up was this remembering of my past life, and my past life vision was about being in the Holocaust. I saw myself that I was a naked old woman, and it was very dark, and there were flashes of light, and every time there were flashes of light, I would see like naked elderly all around me. And we were in this room that was so dark, and I would see sometimes like water, and it was so cold. And as I was remembering it, I was remembering like the experience of it. My body started to tremble, I started crying, and all I could think is like, why do I have to experience that? Like, why? And it was like trying to find meaning, from that experience. Fast forward, 6 months later, I was like, this March, I was in Peru. Like January to March, I was in Peru. In March, I was doing a dieta, a plant diet with a Shipibo shaman, one-on-one. And it was there that I was able to uncover an earlier past life. And the earlier past life, the vision was that I was somehow like involved, either I was the king or I was the general. I don't know who I was, but I was somehow, the sense was I was involved in killing of the babies in Egypt. And I was and this was the time of Moses. And at that time, again, when you remember something, because your heart is open, it's not just remember mentally, it is remembered experientially. And again, like I was having those bodily reactions, those emotional reactions about those memories of being like a murderer to this innocent children. And it was not just one child, it was like millions of them. And that kind of explained why I had to experience the Holocaust, because that was the karmic payment. And what it is now, here in this present life, in that dieta, the spirits told me, you have to do service. You have to do service as form of penance to what you did in that past life. And the reason why you were given this gifts of sight and of foresight, because of all the futures that you took out from those babies from a long time ago, you have to give it back in this lifetime. And it's like, oh my God. So that was like, that made sense to me and kind of hit me, and said, so now this is the reason why I'm doing this. I'm not anybody else, because my purpose, my sole purpose, was not just about like doing these readings and guiding people, or giving back their futures, but because of a karmic debt that I have had to pay in the past life. So that is somehow usually the theme where you are in the awakening, in that stage of awakening. So now we go to step to the seemingly last stage, but actually it's not the last stage, because as I said, it kind of happens simultaneously, and it's like a cycle. And this is the most of the people, like Eckhart Tolle, if you are familiar with Eckhart Tolle, who's the power of the now, who has achieved this detachment from all from everything, or let's just say Buddha, or is this the awakened state? The fully awakened state is a state where you are actively creating your reality, and there is this sense of peace because you're doing things, you're doing yoga, you're doing meditation, not because you want to achieve something, but because you're doing it out of joy, and it is because that it is part of you. So, and this stage, some people choose to teach, but it is not the kind of teacher. It's a detached kind of teacher. Like you're not responsible for the choices of your students. That's the fully awakened state, and this state is a state of fulfillment and bliss. And this is where, like, a lot of people globally, especially spiritual practitioners, are telling that heaven and earth is really possible to experience in this lifetime. Is when you achieve this fully awakened state, you can create your reality, and you create it with joy, not out of need, not out of attachment, but because of the sake of joy of creation. And I know that concept is somehow hard to grasp, because some of you might say, okay, May, you're promising something that is maybe like a woo, magic. It doesn't really exist on earth, but I've seen some people do that, the active, like, creators, and those. And I'm not saying that sometimes there are parts of themselves are also still in the process, but they have attained some aspects of themselves in, like, as a co-creator, because of pushing through this journey. So, hi, Mom Jenny, my old boss. Hi, thank you for watching, and Malene as well. Hi. So for everybody, this is about the awakening process, and we're focusing more on how we can manage this process. How can we fare through this process? And the reason why we're sharing this is because the awakening of the people is in numbers already. We have reached this critical point where a lot of people are experiencing all this loss, all this confusion, all these anxieties, all this sense of meaninglessness, hopelessness, helplessness. And because actually what's happening is that they are entering into this process. And the very reason why you're listening to me right now, or you're experiencing this awakening process, is because your soul kind of signed up for it. We signed up for this time to be together to experience this. And this may be somehow a painful experience, but it is a beautiful, joyful experience in the end, if you pause and look back. And the thing is, once you start this process, there's no going back. There's only forward. So I hope I was able to share something tonight. And if you want to know more about this process, and you want to know where you are in this process, feel free to message me. And there are a lot of tools out there. The reason why this explosion of spiritual practices abound, and it's because to help assist people in this process. And sometimes our soul signed up for one tool to help us. Like, some people signed up for Hinduism, some people signed up for Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Kabbalah. Some people signed up for healing, or being a healer, or being healed. And some people signed up for Tantra, for yoga, for meditation, for mindfulness. So there's a lot of tools out there that could help us, And this is not about, this is not about a hierarchy. When the person is in stage 5, you're still the same person, but in a different, living in a different way. Des said, thank you for sharing your life story to us. I hope you will find my purpose and passion. As of now, I also want my own family, but I don't know if they will happen. Okay. She said that she was brokenhearted several times and afraid to get married. Maybe it's the reason why my heart is locked. Okay, so for Des, the point, sometimes we miss the point. For example, there, your trigger was your brokenheartedness. Let's say your trigger was your brokenheartedness. But the point here is your happiness still lies in the external conditions. You see, your happiness is still dependent on whether you have a good relationship, whether you're married, or whether you're single. But that's not the point. And if you see, the broken family history is the one that really blocked your heart. It was painful for you, and you didn't want to experience that again. And so the focus for you, Des, before you could even find, we talked about the purpose and passion, and as I've told you, that the purpose and passion is somehow in kind of a stage 3 kind of thing, and you couldn't find that until your heart is not open. As I said, the heart is your flashlight. The heart is your discernment. And when you open that, that's when you would know exactly what will make you happy, exactly what is your purpose, and where do you want to go. Without that, you will just be going in circles. So, and also, when your heart is closed, how can people connect with you? How can your mate or your desired mate can connect with you if your heart is closed? You can't do that, because like if your heart is a docking point, how can that other person dock? And that's the reason why it's hard for you to have this marriage that you want to make possible. So my advice for you, Des, and this is coming just for me, you can also try to see other modalities and other people who've gone through this, is to try to open your heart and do and the quickest way after opening your heart is self-love and self-care, and not to put your happiness. Your happiness doesn't lie on the external, but rather the internal. Your strategy is to make yourself happy first, and when that happens, when you would see, and I'm also a love coach, because when you are already in the state of joy and happiness and your heart is open, you don't have to run after anybody, because people will get drawn to you, the people that will take care of you the way you want to take care of yourself. So good luck, Des, and I hope you're able to open your heart. Shine, hi Shine, in France. I hope we'll be able to go there and visit you. Awesome. Okay, says the thing, it's huge concept, and for each person is very unique. That is true. Every awakening process is unique and different than another. I don't think there is a right way to do it. That's true. And I agree with that. There's no right way to do it's not a test. The awakening process is not a test. Nobody said, oh, you did right or you did wrong. The only thing that will judge that is you, because you will be more in suffering when you ignore your process, or you will have relief. Those are the two things that you could have when you're in this process. And all those modalities that we're talking about and offering are, let's just say, some of the things that will help you make it faster, to make the relief faster, to attain that state wherein you are able to resolve or awaken that part of you. And it's a continuous process, because every cycle of awakening is just one part of you. And yes, like for example, you come from the place of unconsciousness, then you come to a place of questioning, and then you come to a place questioning, and then you go to a place where you make now life decisions, and then seeking your life purpose. Those are actually something that is circular or cyclical, but sometimes it's not. It's not. It's hard to figure out, because there's like a combination of things happening and different aspects of you awakening simultaneously. Des said, "Thank you so much, and God bless you." Okay, so I hope I was able to give some insights and some inspiration through this sharing, and thank you for all the people who are sharing. And I will announce through later who won the book. I will announce it later, and I will message the person as well of how to get the book called Finding Light Through the Darkness. And yeah, I hope everyone a good night, and you can still message me or comment here if there are things that you think you forgot to share, but sometimes the insights come in after and it's okay, we can still keep the discussion running. And so that's it. Good night. And I will again, because I started the talk in the previous video with drumming and a song, I'm also gonna end it with some drumming and a song, thanking everybody. Thanking all the souls who connected tonight. And thanking also your higher souls, your higher selves, all our higher selves, for this gathering. Thanking all the spirits who supported us, all the allies and the spirit helpers, all the departed, all our lineage and ancestry, all the teachers who came before us, and all those people who offered to help us in this lifetime. Thank you to all the angels, and also to the great Creator, and also to everything that is God's love, God's light, and God's power. Remembering what we came here for, remembering why we are here, seeing that life is sacred, and this is the part of our creation. Thank you, and I want to tell everyone this motto that I have discovered is that the triumph of one is the triumph of all. In stage 5 of the awakening process, you see the oneness of everybody, and that's the reason you want to share and you want to help. And it's not because you're in a mission and if we're doomed, if we're not. And it's because you want to share out of the joy of sharing, and because we're all one. No man is left behind. No soul is left behind. The triumph of one is the triumph of all. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you for tonight. Namaste, everyone. I love you all. Good night.